Hello there, and welcome to a very special Dream SMP Theory video. It's extra special because I don't have a script written for it yet. It is currently 9:28, Friday, February 11th. You saw the title already. This is going to be about Tales from the SMP, which ended like 2 hours ago. And I got too excited and decided I was just going to take notes instead of writing a script before recording this. So I have a bunch of notes to get through. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. Yeah, this is basically going to be my big overarching Tales from the SMP Theory video. It's going to encompass multiple theory ideas that I was planning to make separate videos on their own, but honestly, I think they fit really well with this theory, kind of to help explain what it means. Yeah, I speed ran this, so let's get into it. So, Tales from the SMP Season 2 just premiered like 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago at this point, and a lot of stuff went down. We got a lot of information about who Karl is as a time traveler, we got a lot of information about Dream XD, we got a lot of information about just a bunch of things. So, I want to break it all down. I want to connect it with other theories I have, and to do that, I need to give some basic information to begin with. So, within this theory, we are going to be discussing three main characters. That will be Karl, obviously, Dream XD, obviously, and Ranboo, which, if you were in Karl's chat, everybody was talking about Ranboo in that chat. So, the things we know before going into this. Ranboo has been confirmed to help write Tales with Karl. Karl and Ranboo themselves have confirmed that they have worked together with writing some of the stuff for it. We're not sure how involved that is, but he has had a hand in planning out the storyline for this. The other thing I want to point out is that Tales from the SMP ended last year. Season 1 ended in spring of last year, and that was around the same time when Ranboo had launched or was in the middle of his current Enderwalk ARG, which I believe now is kind of done with, but we need to make note of that because it was around that same time when the ARG was launching and Tales from the SMP was seemingly wrapping up its season that they had confirmed that they were working together for Tales of the SMP. With that being said, these are my theories, I guess, on how Tales from the SMP includes Ranboo being the original time traveler that Dream XD mentioned, Ranboo also being the very first revival on the Dream SMP, and how that fits into Karl's current storyline and potentially future storyline with Tales from the SMP. Before we get into it, please make sure to like this video if you enjoy it and subscribe for more. I'm trying to reach 1,700 subscribers by the month of May, because I am Mayday 17 after all. And yeah, let's get into it. So, first things first, I want to talk about Karl's character, what we know about him currently, things like that. He's a time traveler. Apparently, he was given the time traveler abilities by Dream XD, as we have learned in the most recent episode. Currently, we also know that his skin has since kind of changed since his time traveling has begun. It's become either less colorized or changed colors, and when he's in the in-between, he is all white. When he's in the other side, he's all black. And now that he's been into Dream XD's realm, I'm going to call it, he is half black and half white. His clothing, I should say, not his full skin, but his clothing at least. Also, we have seen him throughout the last season, and now even more so, he has been keeping diaries of what he has experienced, both keeping note of the stories that he has experienced and also his own reactions to time traveling in itself. And now he has added in a second thing of writing down who he is close to and who he is friends with. Who does that sound like? And also how he's losing his memory and how he, even though you don't know when you're losing your memory because you're losing your memory, he can kind of sort of feel that something's different with him. So he writes about the fact that he's losing his memory in addition to notably forgetting one of his fiancées on his friends list. But he doesn't know that. But as we have seen with the Lost Nevadas lore, we know that he is not in that same mindset of being fiancés with Quackity that he once was. So next we have to talk about Dream XD a little bit. Obviously we know he's God. Apparently, he is the god of time as well as just the god of the server. He is the one who is responsible for both the Revival Book and the Book of Death, which means he can do both things and has control over both things. We also know he is the ruler of the End, which is very notable. And I'm not sure if we're considering the End to be the same as his realm or not. That's up for debate, but we know he is the ruler of the End. So in my head, he almost replaces the Ender Dragon in a sense. He is the reason that Karl is a time traveler. He specifically says, I made you a time traveler. And he also mentions that Karl is not the first time traveler. There was one other time traveler that I believe he couldn't make a choice, if I remember correctly. But he doesn't go into very much detail about this other time traveler, except for that fact. Additionally, we know he is the one to have appointed essentially overseers of both the in-between and the other side. I'm assuming he also rules those two, but the overseers kind of just watch over it when he can't be there, I'm going to assume. But he is the one who created the overseers in order to help guide Karl through the other side and the in-between. Also, Dream XD is the one who says that every time Karl time travels from now on, he has to choose between going to the in-between and going to the other side. Each one will have its own benefits, each with its own consequences, and neither side is right or wrong, you just have to pick one. And I think that is something that's very notable for later on. Lastly, just a quick overview about Rambu's character. Real quick. He's half Enderman and half whatever that was in Enderman that he mentioned that one time. He is half black and half white. His full skin is half black and half white, not just his clothing, though he does wear a suit. He wears a crown, which he didn't always wear a crown, but once he joined the Dream SMP, he had a crown on. So I'm considering the crown to be part of his skin as canon from the beginning. He has a really bad memory and most likely doesn't have many memories from prior to the Dream SMP, from his entrance into the Dream SMP, I should say. His quote-unquote first days in the Dream SMP. Doesn't seem like he talks about that very much. He doesn't have those memories. We really don't know much at all. He also has the Ender Walk, which is something that takes over. He has no real memory of this. We know he was experimenting with it at one point, and at one point he mentioned that his Ender Walk state is him with his full memories. Of course, all of that has since gone out the window since he is canonically dead right now. But yeah, the Enderwalk is something where he has no control over himself. He normally doesn't remember it, and the Enderwalk supposedly is the version of Rambu with his full set of memories. Rambu also hates making choices. We know from essentially the wars in L'Manberg that he doesn't like to choose sides. He prefers choosing people, and that's honestly one of his big mottos and things that he carries with him throughout the whole storyline so far. That's one of his main character traits, you could say. And lastly, he keeps diaries for things that he has done in the past, and he keeps a list of who his friends and enemies are, people he can trust, people he can't trust, facts about his life that he doesn't want to forget, and if he puts it in the book, he's able to reread these books and take a look at them again and make sure that he understands what's going on. Notably, we have not been able to see the contents of a lot of these books, but they exist. With that being said, let's get into the theories. Finally, first up, the main theory everyone was speculating at the beginning of Tales, or at the end of Tales from the SMP, the main theory everyone was speculating in the chat, Rambu is the original time traveler. Now this would make sense because Rambu is half black and half white, much like Karl's skin in the in-between. Rambu also hates making choices, which Dream XD said that Karl had to make this big choice between the two, with eventually it feeling like he's going to have to choose one forever and leave the other one behind. And we know Rambu is not very good at making those kinds of choices. Also, this next bit might be a little out there and it might be a little far-fetched, but I think it is something to consider. Rambu is the original revival attempt. Hear me out. Dream XD is the ruler of the end. Dream XD is also the ruler of the server. But if you're a god at the beginning of your server, you don't necessarily know the extent of your power yet, right? But he does know the extent of his power over the end because that was his main realm of ruling from the get-go. Who are the people that exist in the end? Endermen. What is Rambu? Half an Enderman. Because Dream XD wanted to try and control or figure out how to bring his power into the overworld, he could have chosen one of his subjects, the Enderman, Rambu, and brought him to the overworld. Here's the problem. There are two ways to get to the overworld from the end realm. One is to beat the Ender Dragon, essentially beating the game, and jump through the portal, but in this case that would most likely mean beating Dream XD, probably the reason why the end is banned from everybody, or dying and respawning in the overworld. With that being said, Dream XD could have killed Rambu's Enderman form and respawned him in the overworld. But we don't have any concrete proof that Endermen can actually become full personified beings, so to speak. We have no sense of idea that that sort of mob can become a character. We know from someone like Slime's character that it took him thousands upon thousands of years to be able to make himself partially human. And even then he still wasn't fully human yet. So from Dream XD's point of view, he's gonna want to be able to help that along because otherwise he's just gonna have another Enderman in the overworld, and that's no fun. So what if he brings somebody back from the dead but sticks them into Rambu's body because he knows how to control it? This, my friends, is where Z comes in. That is right, we are bringing the ARG into this. So for this theory, Z and Ranbu are the same person, just at different points in time. Let me explain. Dream XD most likely needed to pull a soul from Limbo in order to help the Enderman achieve sort of life characteristics of a commonplace character on the Dream SMP. That's where Z comes in. Z and Ranbu have so many similarities in that both were trying to explore the Enderwalk. Both knows that it's half of them, but they couldn't figure it out. That's what the ARG was leading to. The ARG was leading to the fact that Z and Ranbu are the same person. That's why there are so many similar symbols on things you see from the ARG's Twitter. It would make sense then why the Enderwalk state is essentially Ranbu or Z with their full scale of memories, because this is the version of them that has the memories or the knowledge that Dream XD brought them from the end and is turning them into a time traveler, and they don't know that, and so that's why they're stuck here as just like a human being, essentially. This could also be why Ranbu says his other half is this Enderman noise, the same noise that Dream XD was essentially making in Tales from the SMP when talking to Karl, because the Enderman half doesn't know how to articulate that in English yet, or the conscious Ranbu/Z isn't in the Enderwalk state, so they don't have that knowledge, so it just comes out as Enderman noise, essentially. It's like a blocked memory for them. But this could also mean that Z and Ranbu are also Ran. Now, this is getting a bit far-fetched, I know. This whole thing is getting a bit far-fetched, but bear with me, okay? If we think about Ranbu in his Enderwalk state, from the couple clips we have speculated that he is in his Enderwalk, being the disc finale, potentially Wilbur's revival. It's a very stoic, reserved kind of person, whereas Ranbu's very neurotic, energetic, that kind of thing. Ran, from Tales from the SMP, is this same exact way. Now, this could be because Z, Ranbu, Ran at that time were only choosing one side to go in after they were time traveling each time, that being the other side. Because, as we know from Karl, when you enter the other side, you enter an all-black persona. So at the time, this could have just been Ran, Z, Ranbu, choosing to only go into the other side and re-interact with people all the time, which is why Ran's character says, "Oh, you'll see me again," because he will be able to revisit them in the other side. Also, we know that time traveling, in order to get back to present day, you have to die essentially in the time period that you time travel to. That is why in so many episodes of Tales from the SMP it ends with Karl dying essentially, and then traveling to Dream XD's realm, or the in-between, or the other side, or whatever. Because of this, theoretically the same thing would most likely happen to Ranbu, which is why every single time you have to be revived essentially, hence why Ranbu is the original revival. Because of this, this could have been the point in time after Ranbu was first revived from the end, essentially, when Z was put into Ranbu's Enderman form and was still fully Enderman and hadn't made any choices yet. So that's why he still looked fully Enderman and hadn't gotten the half black, half white that we know Ranbu to be today, characteristically. Because of all of this, we can probably assume that Ranbu was the one leaving the notes for Karl in the in-between, because the overseers have said that they're not the ones who caused the chasing in the last scene. They're not the ones causing Karl the stress. They're the ones who have just been saying, stay on the path, you have to stay on the path. It's what's meant for you. But this also leads me to the fact that the overseers probably weren't there for Ranbu's time as a time traveler. Because Dream had said that the in-between and the other side were made specifically for Karl as a time traveler, and that he added the overseers in to guide him along this way, it would make sense then that there was a time where they didn't exist to help guide the time traveler along their way. The only other time traveler we know of is the one before Karl, because that's the only one Dream XD talks about. And because we are assuming it is Ranbu in this case, we are assuming that Ranbu went between the in-between and the other side with no guidance whatsoever. He just had to figure things out on his own. It would also explain then why Ranbu's wearing a crown on his head, because if you think about it, the two characteristics of the in-between and the other side are the fact that they both are gigantic, beautiful castles. And for Ranbu, because he had no guidance of, oh, you have to choose between this sort of power for your time traveling or this sort of power of revisiting those you've time traveled to, he would assume he's essentially choosing between kingdoms. That's a very fair assumption to make, considering. I mean, if you had no one there to tell you, oh hey, I'm here to help you with your time traveling if you choose me, or oh hey, I'm here to help you visit those you've time traveled to, and you were just given 2 castle realms to choose from, you would probably assume that you're going to be the ruler of one of them or the owner of one of them. And because he has a crown and we don't have a canonical explanation for the crown, it makes sense that he was given a crown and had to go pick the place he was crowned for. Plus, we haven't seen Karl enough in the other side yet to know if there were books left for him by Ranbu there as well. Because the other side is more strategically crafted around the time traveler, it would necessarily then make sense that we wouldn't see any interaction with Ranbu, because the in-between is more subject to time travelers as a whole, whereas the other side is very personalized to each time traveler. But I would be very interested to see in the future if we get Karl walking around the other side, seeing books from the mysterious other time traveler, or Ranbu in this case, and what they would have to say about the other side. Because Ranbu couldn't make a choice. Karl was given the task of choosing between the other side and the in-between at the end by Dream XD himself, saying that every time he time travels, he's going to have to choose between them. But also that with time travel, you're going to end up losing your memories at some point. So the one is about figuring out how to control your time travel when you want, and the other is about preserving your memories. But the thing is, for Ranbu, we know he doesn't like choosing sides. We know he doesn't like picking between things like that, especially when he's picking between controlling his time traveling powers to help those in the present, or controlling his time traveling powers in a sense to help those in the past and future. He would have to choose between people, choosing a side essentially, and he doesn't do that. So therefore, it would make sense then that Ranbu has refused to choose a side, keeping him the half black and half white that we know of him today, and now he's stuck in the overworld, potentially having gained enough knowledge to be able to refuse to time travel, but also losing all of his memories because he can't continue to go to the other side anymore. It makes perfect sense. And this leads me to my very last theory point, whatever you want to call it. Because Ranbu is stuck in this state of not remembering that he is the first time traveler and refusing to time travel, essentially, this is what allows Dream to control Ranbu. Let me explain. Dream holds the revival book. The revival book was given to the Dream SMP, essentially, by Dream XD. Dream XD also took the physical form of Dream because he saw him as the first human, essentially, and for some reason has a sweet spot for him. It would make sense then, if Ranbu is the original revival attempt, that there is something about Ranbu's revival in the revival book, saying that maybe it's the history of revival or something up until now, and how it works, and what it works on, and what it doesn't work on. Because as we have seen, Dream has tested it on numerous different things. I mean, the only thing he didn't know about was what happens when you revive someone who's already alive, which is why he tested it with Techno while in prison. And that summoned Dream XD. So it makes sense then that he would probably have some knowledge of Ranbu being a revived time traveler over and over again in the revival book, which could also allow him to potentially trigger this time traveling all memory state, which could be his Ender Walk. The Ender Walk is the version of Ranbu who knows how to time travel, who has refused to pick a side in the in-between and the other side, and Dream is using that leverage over him by essentially saying, look, you will do my bidding for me, and in return I will not kill you in order to bring you back again, so you don't have to make a choice again. Like, it's genius. And like, this is how he is getting Ranbu to do that, and this is why Ranbu is so reluctant about it. Because the Enderwalk version of Ranbu knows that he's going to have to make a choice. And the problem is, now that Ranbu has so many attachments in the present, it's going to be so much harder for him to make a choice, because prior to the Dream SMP, most likely he had attachments to the present somewhere else and just forgot about them, and that's why he wandered away. But what little memory he has now of the present, he probably doesn't want to let go of. So Dream is holding that over his head, and Dream XD is like, yeah, I need my time traveler back. Like, I'm not gonna be a failure. I'm the god of the server. So yeah, go for it, Dream. Control my time traveler. Make him come back to me so I can chew him out for abandoning me, essentially, and having to pick another one. Is this making any sense? Am I speaking like crazy town right now? Probably. So let's review, shall we? Ranbu is the original time traveler from Tales from the SMP. Ranbu is also the original revival for the Dream SMP, because each time you time travel, you get revived. Ranbu refused to make a choice after being revived so many times, and that's why he is stuck in the state that he is in currently on the Dream SMP. Karl, being the next time traveler. Side theory: Ranbu's books that he left in the in-between weren't necessarily made for Karl, they were made for Ranbu if he ever gets brought back there and still doesn't have his memories. Potentially, the last time he was made to choose between the in-between and the other side, he went around leaving those books because he knew that his memory was going to be gone. And it could also be why, in a moment of Enderwalk state, he realized that Karl was the next time traveler, and that's what activated that weird sequence in the in-between. Oh, I really hope this is true, because it would be so cool to see. Ugh. So yeah, Dream XZ brought Ranbu from the end into the overworld, combined him with Z, a cool dude, essentially. Brought them together. Or Z could be Rand revives. Honestly, they're just all connected, basically. Whew. Just shook my camera. Dream XZ pulled Enderman Ranbu from the end, put him in the overworld with essentially Z, Rand, whatever you want to call him, made him a person so that he could directly control and influence the overworld finally. Made Ranbu a time traveler so he could influence the past and present. Ranbu, gaining consciousness, realized that he was losing his memories, and the Enderwalk state was actually Ranbu as the full time traveler self version of him. And that is also the version that we see as Ghostboo, who is finally happy to be dead, but does not want to be revived. Potentially. Maybe. Really hoping. And Ranbu being the original revival and the original time traveler is how Dream has been able to use Ranbu as his personal servant essentially this entire time, and Ranbu is the reason why Karl is worrisome of the in-between, and gosh, I hope we get to see them interact soon, because I don't think we've really ever seen them interact recently since Tales from the SMP is really ramped up. So yeah, that's the big Tales from the SMP theory. I hope you guys enjoyed. I sure did. I've been freaking out for the last 30 minutes recording this. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like the video, comment down below. Is there anything I missed? What do you think of this theory? Does it actually all connect? Because in my head, there's wires crossing everywhere, so. And yeah, let me know if you're excited for the next Tales from the SMP episode, because I sure am. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!